Hey guys, what's up? This is Insanity. Got a gameplay of World War II on a PC. As you can imagine, this is a really old gameplay, and it's a gameplay I kept around for commentary fodder purposes. This is a game of Wanderlust, a pretty interesting game type unique to World War II that I don't think any other COD game had, in which every time you switch your weapon, it will rotate out and you get a different gun to use. You can't switch back to your old weapon, and we'll have to hope that it pops out again if you want to use it once more. But you essentially don't have to worry about running out of ammo because you always switch to a fresh gun every time. It will be really neat to have more unique game types like this as opposed to things like Gunfight and the Battlefield knockoff types like Modern Warfare's Ground War or Cold War's Combined Arms. Anyway, I thought I'd dedicate this commentary to talking about the new Batman movie with Robert Pattinson, which originally I thought I'd wait until it came out on HBO Max since someone was kind enough to share their account with me, but some people were interested in seeing the movie with me in theaters, and so I finally watched the movie about 3 weeks after release. I was exposed to spoilers, of course, but the spoilers were lacking in the sense of me not really understanding the context, so I was still able to watch the movie fresh in spite of the spoilers. Long story short, an 8 out of 10 for Batman. I don't think this needed to be a 3-hour movie, and of course it literally isn't 3 hours if you remove the end credits, but the cast was great. The movie highlighting and focusing on the detective side of Batman was great. The villains were good without overshadowing Batman or needing tons of screen time to feel their presence, and the world of the Batman feels immersive. Gotham is its own character of how it's constantly dark, rainy, and criminal infested it is, which I appreciated. I'm really happy to not have consumed so much Batman media that even though this movie is another dark and grounded take on Batman, it still feels fresh by virtue of the movie actually focusing on Batman. Robert Pattinson is suited up as Batman for 90% of the movie, and this is an actual plot point. He prefers being Batman. His Bruce Wayne is a social recluse who is awkward in public, and he wants to get back to Gotham by enforcing justice as Batman, which he can't do as Bruce Wayne. So this is the best quote-unquote Batman movie ever. On the other hand, Bruce Wayne is a lacking persona that this Batman needs to develop, so it is a terrible Bruce Wayne movie. As Robert Pattinson is in his year 2 of his Batman career, he's still young, raw, and full of vengeance, and rarely holds back. This version of Batman is basically what happens if you take Ben Affleck's Batman and made him younger, and as a universe that's siled off from the rest of the DC universe with no other superheroes in existence besides Batman, this means Batman doesn't have to share screen time or acknowledge other heroes, and we can actually be shown and see the things that are unfolding with Robert Pattinson's Batman. I'll just call him Pattinson for short, as well as Batfleck for Ben Affleck's Batman. One problem with Batfleck is that by writing him as a veteran superhero with tons of stories that establish various things, such as Batfleck already having fought most of his villains happening off screen, and dumping him into a shared universe of other DC superheroes, we can only infer things that happen since there's no time to dedicate towards showing those events. Batfleck becoming more brutal and cruel after years of crime fighting, and eventually finding his way back to light sounds like a compelling story, but all we have is him seemingly losing Robin at some point, and a final battle of Man of Steel making him paranoid, darkening his character, but without a real sense of passage of time to determine whether Batfleck behaved any differently throughout his career compared to how he behaves in Batman v Superman. There are various things about Pattinson's world that feels like a better communication of the intention behind Batfleck. Some time has passed not too long ago since Bruce Wayne's origin story happened. Gotham has been established flourishing with criminal activity, including villainous characters that are already active like Penguin and Catwoman. We have at least one villain who has already had a confrontation with Batman and is currently incarcerated in the Joker. We're dumped into the middle of the story with the Riddler actively causing havoc and sending clues to Pattinson. Jim Gordon and Pattinson have a mutual partnership and trust towards each other, and we can actively see Batman make mistakes or minor blunders to show him being human, which makes sense of a younger Batman. Pattinson's key character arc is learning to rise above vengeance and become a symbol of hope for the people of Gotham, after learning to his dismay that the Riddler and his followers were inspired by Batman's vengeance and performed actions that in hindsight were less about purging Gotham of its filth and more about getting revenge on a societal system that has failed them. In a sense, going from dark to light, just like Batfleck when he was a darker character up to Batman v Superman, and eventually returned to light after meeting and properly getting to understand Superman following his death. Execution is ultimately the key, and Pattinson ultimately executes the idea behind Batfleck much better. Of course, what also helps is that Pattinson explicitly has a no-kill code, which is expressly shown and reinforced throughout the movie. He stops people from shooting to kill other people if possible. He saves a corrupt person from falling to his death, even though it would have been justified. Jim Gordon says, no guns is kind of your thing in one scene, and there's nothing in the movie showing Pattinson playing fast and loose with his no-kill policy, unlike Batfleck and even the Nolan trilogy with Christian Bale's Batman. This makes it more believable when Pattinson decides that he must rise above and become a more heroic figure when there is no display of hypocrisy, even though this Batman is written as the same serious and dark character as most of the other live-action Batman. Since the Batman is more of a detective movie, the action is mostly spaced out, and the one standout action sequence people will probably remember the best is the Batmobile chase, simply because it's the longest action sequence compared to the other action scenes, which are more brief to get back to the story. It's the only time the Batmobile is featured, and the sound design in the sequence is amazing. Even the car chase itself is fairly standard. Of course, once the Riddler's mystery in Endgame is revealed, the final act shifts to being more of an action movie. Pattinson's fighting style opts for general brawling and beatdowns, though he does mix in kicks and occasionally showing how nimble he is. It's a nice middle ground between Christian Bale's Batman's more straightforward approach and Batfleck's Arkham-style martial arts, while still keeping with the theme of a realistic and grounded Batman. I do think it would have been bolder for Batman to have no action scenes whatsoever and just be a detective movie the entire time, though it probably would have to try harder in order to justify a near 3-hour runtime. If there's one thing I could change about this movie, it's the removal of Catwoman and saving her for a movie that develops the Bruce Wayne persona of Pattinson. The synopsis for the Batman states that Bruce and Selina are childhood friends, but this aspect is not really portrayed on screen, save for maybe the one moment that Pattinson is scoping out Selina changing clothes rather voyeuristically, and part of Catwoman's crusade is her getting back at privileged white men, which is similar rhetoric to what the Riddler spouts as his crusade, but making it more general as he's targeting the wealthy and corrupt in Gotham with no regard to their ethnicity. So that made her character a bit redundant, even though she's not a villain like the Riddler. Because the Bruce Wayne persona of Pattinson doesn't really behave that much differently to Batman, I would have cut out Catwoman and have the next movie be all about Pattinson developing his Bruce Wayne persona, and Catwoman comes into the picture and she's used as a foil to Batman in terms of their crusade and different approaches to crime fighting. Plus, Selina and Bruce could reconnect, and their difference in lifestyles since childhood could help with Pattinson making Bruce a more active part of his life instead of wishing to be Batman all the time. Something along those lines. I did enjoy the movie overall, but again, I do feel like it did not need to be a 3-hour movie. The only aspect that probably benefited the most from the lengthy running time is Gotham being developed and fleshed out as a setting. For our next movie, I think they can get away with leaning into a more action-y movie, but they definitely should focus on the Bruce Wayne side of things over Batman. We're definitely off to a good start with Pattinson, and I can't wait to see what comes next. That's the gameplay and commentary. Hope you enjoyed it, and Insanity is out.